Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. This episode, the Turkey Trot. Thanks for listening to another edition of Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help you save time, money, and aggravation. This edition is entitled The Turkey Trot, Kitchen Tips and Tricks. To help me explain, I'm here with my ever-cheerful co-host and old buddy, John. John, what's been happening this week?
Well, Larry, I'm glad to be here as always, and this week it's a big week. It's Thanksgiving week, and actually that's what's going on this week. I have a refrigerator full of food and drinks. It's the typical looking around, and I know it's going to be a pretty big mess in the kitchen after all this is done with.
Man, I've got the same thing going on. So I thought this week maybe what we would do is talk a little bit about tips and tricks for the kitchen to help with the holiday season. So with that, what's a big concern of yours around?
Well, yeah. So when I look around, you have the refrigerator, you have the microwave, you've got the oven, you've got the garbage disposal.
Yeah, you got to get rid of all that stuff.
You got
right?
a dishwasher, and I think I might have hit it all in the same order there, in the right order. But yeah, I mean, you kind of look around and you say, look, I
got a mess coming up. I got to figure out what to do, right?
Yeah, we haven't talked about this before, and I know it's kind of secondary on a lot of people. I know you got a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of people in that kitchen, and it gets to be quite a mess. But
and some of these things are pretty complicated machines. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't want to mistreat them, and you want to make sure that you
get maximum life out of them.
Correct.
Right. Back to our thing about saving you time, aggravation, and money. Right.
Right.
So let's talk about the refrigerator, because I figure if you're going to do if you're going to do your Thanksgiving meal, the first place starts is shoving everything into the refrigerator. And one of the worst things you could ever do is have the refrigerator fail right before the big day.
Oh man. I don't even want to think about that. But
right.
Go ahead.
All right. So anyway, a couple things about refrigerators, right? One is what are they, John? They're always on.
They're always on. That's right.
They're always on. And what's a refrigerator actually do? Well, we've talked about HVAC systems in the past, and it's essentially the same thing. It's just at a micro scale, right? So it is constantly moving air and sucking up electricity. But basically, it moves air over the thing. It cools off the inside of the box. And if you care to listen to that, we have another show on HVAC. But this, there's some really simple things you can do to help extend the life of your refrigerator, make it last longer and make it run more efficiently. Mm-hmm. So refrigerators have condenser coils, right? Just like your HVAC system.
Correct.
And because they move a lot of air, right?
Yep.
They get dirty.
They get dusty and dirty.
They get dirty and dusty, and they get filled up. And these are just things that you can do, I don't know, every 3 to 6 months you can do it. It's really not going to cost you any money. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But they make special brushes called condenser coil brushes, and you can brush it out. Or if you just depending on what your status is. I mean, I know I take an air hose, or I take my electric blower, and I just blow them out. Of course, that makes a big mess on the other side. But
use the vacuum.
Use the vacuum. Vacuum them out. Just clean the dust and dirt off of them. Make sure that they're clean. Use a brush. Works really well. Same thing with the condenser fan. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's spinning right, because if it's not spinning right, you used to be in the vending business, as you know, and we used to have a tremendous number of refrigerant failures based on the fact that the fan motor would actually lock up. So once the air stops flowing over it, it goes back to all those things we talked about in HVAC. The pressures rise, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're replacing a compressor. So just make sure that thing's spinning. One of the other things to check, too, on your fridge is the door gasket, right? You don't want the air running out. Now, in my life, I'm going to tell a quick little story. The other day, my lovely bride goes and she opens the freezer, and there's all this frost in the freezer, right? And it's dropping on the ground and all this nonsense. And why was that? Well, probably because yours truly did not shut the refrigerator or the freezer door all the way, and the freaking thing ran, and it drew a lot of air in, and blah, blah, blah. So the next thing you know, we've got a mess going on down there.
And a discussion.
And a discussion or something like that.
Something similar to that. A chat.
Yeah, the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but anyway, but she was within her rights, and I had screwed up. But anyway, make sure that the door seal is good, and just run your hand along. And the other thing is too, if you've ever been on an older refrigerator, they get all that black mold and mildew. Put a little bleach on there and just clean it off, right? You've seen that.
Yeah, and I'll just add that if you have a dog, really be careful of all the hair that gets up underneath the refrigerator. You want to suck all that out if you can.
Yep. The Z-Man, he's right here with us doing recording. He spends time with us. So there's that. The other thing is just make sure that there's actually a drain in the back of your refrigerator too. Just make sure it's clear. There should be a little water that flows through if it's usually in your freezer, but there's usually a little drip condenser, and it actually falls into a pan that's back behind the fan. If the fan blows air over it, it evaporates all. You never know what goes on. But if there's a clog, it can cause all kinds of problems. So that's about a once a year thing, and even then, it's not even that. It's not that common. It was pretty common in the vending machines, but not so much in refrigerators. So those are just a couple of quick tips and tricks. We're going to have this published out. We've got a series that we're publishing on our website at handymanprosradioshow.com that's called the Basic Home Maintenance Series, and this is one of them. All of these notes that we'll talk about today are actually will be published out at some time in the future. But this is just basic maintenance. So that's where you start. You start at the fridge, right? Because that's where the first stuff comes in. And then, so the second thing, that we thought we'd talk about is the microwave, right, John?
Yeah, that's the next thing. Now, usually, and I'll just open it up. And usually, I don't have too many problems with a microwave, except just to clean it.
But I was going to say you do a couple things to keep the cleaning easy.
But you do, yeah. You want to keep it clean.
Right. So cleaning of a microwave, right, really starts, in my opinion, with covering your food when you actually warm it up, right? Because have you ever cooked like a sauce, John?
Oh yeah.
And what happens?
Oh yeah, if you don't cover things up in a microwave, it pops and explodes and all kinds of things.
Splatters all over the place. So cover your food is one of the big things. Just wipe off the inside of your microwave on a fairly regular basis. You can do this weekly or monthly or kind of whatever, but just keep it clean. It's going to take out spots of food. It's going to stop corrosion from developing and bad smells. That stuff cooks every time you put it in there, so it just gets harder and harder and harder to clean. Little vinegar and will clean off that. Right. Vinegar and water is a really good thing to do.
Actually, my wife bought this thing this little gadget. You put vinegar and water in it, and then you put it in the microwave and you cook it.
And you cook it.
And the fumes of that gets
up
everything,
in and
gets
everything
everything off. I was amazed.
Yep. So do that. If you have one that's mounted on the countertop, clean the outside of it, right? Obviously. Use microwavable containers. I mean, I know that sounds funny, but you think, do people still do that? But they actually still do. So they don't use microwavable containers. They break or they melt. Don't use metal in your microwave. I mean, I hate to say it, but people still do it. Well, I don't understand what all those sparks and things were in there. Yeah, it's like, well, you put metal in there, and then one other thing is the same thing like on the fridge. Make sure the door closes properly, because if the door doesn't close properly, it actually theoretically puts you at risk.
Right.
Radiation can escape and all that kind of stuff, so you don't want that. So that's microwave, So now we're into cooking, right? So we're talking about cooking. We talked a little bit about the oven. Ovens are pretty simple. They basically are a heating element. There's not a whole lot of maintenance that goes into an oven other than cleaning it. You can do a deep clean on the oven. There's plenty of information out there. We're not real big on using caustic chemicals, so we don't spray the heavy duty chemicals in there. We tend to do what you talked about, John. We use vinegar, and we actually we cook it with in the microwave with a little bit of vinegar and water, and just cook it, and it works really, really well. It's really simple.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's just kind of the same thing. Wipe it out, keep it cleaned out. Do that kind of stuff.
I usually get the hazmat suit and everything out, and get the the easy off going in there.
Well, I mean, that's an option. It's just caustic. It's just kind of one of those things that does, and true, like my oven has a self-cleaning cycle, so I run the self-cleaning cycle every once in a while. Clean the top of the thing off and all that kind of thing. Just keep the knobs clean and outside stuff. But oven's pretty simple. But above the oven and stove, if you have an oven and stove thing, this is a lot of things people don't think about, and because, as you know, we've got rental properties and we tend to go in these homes, and always, always, always up above the stove, we put a range hood, and that range hood gets gross. I mean, gross, because it catches all the what?
All the grease. All the grease that's floating around. And the other thing is that if you really, speaking of that, if you ever get on top of your cabinets and things like that in your kitchen, you'd be amazed how much grease is up.
Dirt,
slime, and
dust,
grime is up on top of there. Not a bad thing to. That's another little bit maintenance, a little bit of a tip for a maintenance item before all the people come over.
Right. Is just that gets into whole cleaning, but
Right.
still making sure that it's clean up there is really, really important. So one thing is there's a filter up there in that range hood, right? So you've got to take that out. Usually it's made out of, it depends what it's made out of, but usually it's got some kind of charcoal filter on it. They can be replaced. You can do those about once a year. Sometimes they have a metal screen in there, and that oftentimes you can just put a degreasing solution in it and put it. Sometimes you can run them through the dishwasher. It just depends. It depends on the particular one that you have. Just search Google for what the particular brand you have and how to do it. But definitely about, I don't know, it just depends how many greasy things you cook. But at least once a year, you really want to spray a good degreasing solution up under your range hood and really clean it out. Yeah. Because they get nasty. And it's a fire hazard.
Right. And I would say, if you have something like that and it discharges back into the room, don't run that thing without that screen filter in there, because that's just going to exacerbate the issue of having all that grease flying around in your kitchen. And that stuff will get on everything. Now, I've got a downdraft in my kitchen that goes outside, but I still have a filter in it.
Right.
And it gets pretty nasty.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Do you have a ducted fan or not? And the way that you tell is, does it go someplace besides back into the room? Most of them swing back into the room. You'd be surprised how many of them swing just right back into the room. And it does. It tends to blow that grease everywhere. So it's really better to have it ducted outside. So that's just, but if it's not that way. So that's the range hood, right? So now you've cooked.
So now we've cooked, and now we're going to start to clean up. And so what we're doing is, people inevitably, they're scraping all kinds of things down into the garbage disposal. Oh. Most people think that, we're going to be able to throw anything and everything into the garbage disposal, and magically it disappears.
Wow. It's like a neat, novel concept.
Not quite.
So first off, let's just talk about that. Where does that actually go?
Well, that goes to I don't have one because I'm on a septic.
Okay.
So I chose not to put one in.
Because you have a septic system.
Because I have a septic system. Now, otherwise, it goes right back out into the sewers.
So let's just take a step back. So why do you not have one for a septic system? We'll do a show on septic in the future, but
it'll upset the balance. If you don't put the right things in, it'll upset the balance of the septic system.
Septic system, right?
And then you are short-lived for the septic system. So, and people get very used to throwing, like I just said, everything into a garbage disposal, and you can't just go do those kind of things in a septic. Nor should you even do that anyways in a garbage disposal.
Right. So so I worked in and around the septic and or sewer industry for a long time in my professional career. The biggest issue.
How many baths did you take?
Yeah, lots. Gross. And hepatitis shots all the time. Anyway, one of the things what people don't realize, the big issue with any septic and or sewer system, it's called fog. It's fats, oils, and greases, right?
Right.
So fats, oils, and greases, it's called fog. And that's what really kills your septic and your sewer system. Right. Don't think that because you're on sewer that everything's hunky dory. I'll just pour this all this fat and oil and stuff down in your pipes. What happens is that fats and oil goes down into the pipe and it actually solidifies up on the sides of your pipe, and you will actually need what's called a sewer jetter to come in and cut that stuff out, and it's pretty expensive to have it done. But it literally will turn it combines with all the other things that you put down your drain, including hair and all the other things that go into your sewer pipe, and it makes this literally this solid mass. It takes a 4-inch pipe, and we've seen them as small as less than an inch, right?
Think arteries.
Yeah, it's right. Exactly. That's a great analogy. It's the clogged arteries, and eventually the thing stops working, and you've got a big, big mess on your hands. In a septic system, what happens is that fats, oils, and greases, it actually gets up on top of the water because oil floats, right? And it creates what's called a skim. It will actually stop the bacteria from being able to do their job in your septic system. That's what kills it. So you can put things into a septic system even through a garbage disposal or whatever, as long as it's not fats, oils, and greases. But how many people really monitor what they put in their disposal?
Like I said, that people have been. A lot of people just don't look at what they're doing with a garbage disposal.
It just disappears.
And that's why I chose not to. Put one in here and thus reduce that temptation.
Yep. So a couple things on your garbage disposal, and I've replaced a lot of garbage disposals in my handyman business, and I know you probably have too, John. For just normal things, run some clean soapy water through there every once in a while. Sounds simple, right? It is simple. But take some, just flush the thing. Just run some stuff through there. Run it through, loosens up food waste and things like that, and makes it go away. On a longer basis, on a more monthly basis, you can do things like put lemons and things in there. You can actually here's another really good actionable tip. Take a tray, or take some ice cubes, basically a tray of ice cubes, but put it in, grind up the ice cubes. That's actually going to block the line. The ice will. It'll make a slushy mixture. It blocks up the line, right? So then you pour in a little bit of vinegar, and what that does is it allows it to sit there, and it just kind of loosens everything up. Then you flip that thing on, and it just blows away all the other stuff. You also can do vinegar. You can do a mixture of like vinegar and baking soda and pour it in there. It kind of fizzes up and makes it's a more active cleaner. And again, all of this stuff's going to be on the website. We're going to post these articles up. Give us a little bit of time, but we will post up these things. But you can also put a little chlorine bleach down there every once in a while if you want to. But these are, we're trying to stay away from really caustic chemicals. But oranges, lemons, citrusy type things, put them in your disposal. Ice in your disposal just to clean it up. Ice will actually also sharpen your blades, believe it or not. It doesn't destroy your blades like a metal thing would, but it'll actually sharpen up your blades a little bit. So.
Good tip.
Yeah, a couple of tips on the old garbage disposal. Well, and then, what happens?
Then we, after we scraped off all the plates, then we put them in the dishwasher.
John, I thought that was putting them in your side of the sink.
Put it in my side of the sink. For me to do them later.
For you to do them. You're the dishwasher.
And then I put them in the dishwasher to let them dry out. So now when you're putting things into the dishwasher, and this is another, I've repaired and replaced dishwashers. This is another appliance when used properly and looked after, lasts a long time. But you can really overlook a lot of things, and
the maintenance can be very expensive.
Very expensive
for little things that you can do on a very regular basis, right?
Right.
So again, we're trying to give you tips and tricks that are going to avoid visits from the appliance repairman and from us as handymen. We're trying to kill our own business, but we're trying to help you out. So that's the reason that we're talking about this. One of the first things in your dishwasher, right? I mean, I know it sounds crazy,
give us a couple of tips, sir.
Check around the drain.
Absolute boy, isn't that the truth?
Make sure make sure it's all filled up with hair and old food particles and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. You'd be surprised nobody even looks down there.
Yeah, and so I guess we're in radio, so let's describe where that is, John.
Right at the very bottom.
Yep.
Right at the very bottom.
Yeah, and if you look down in there and you see a whole bunch of stuff, you kind of need to clean it out every once in a while.
Right, and you'll find broken old stuff down there. You might even find some old forks or something that get stuck down there.
You do.
That's a really good tip for that. Is to really check that drain, because if that thing gets clogged, you're have a bad day.
Yeah, and underneath that there's a pump, right? And so
Correct.
this is what people don't understand. And if you have little, like particularly little, really hard things like bones or anything like that, little pieces that get through and get into the pump, then they grind on the pump, which is going to shorten the life of the pump.
That's a good point.
So it's just kind of one of those little things. But if you take, so this is another trick. If you take another cup, again, we're using white vinegar and water, and you put the cup up in the top rack of the machine and you run it through a cycle, it's going to sterilize your refrigerator, your dishwasher. Have you ever had a dishwasher that smelled, John?
I haven't, but I have had. I know people that have.
Yep.
And I will tell you that it can be a real pain.
Yeah, it is
hard to get rid of.
And hard to get rid of that
Very
smell.
hard. Yeah.
So again, we try to put things forth that are simple, right? White vinegar, you can go down and buy it anywhere pretty much. It's really inexpensive.
Yeah.
Just put a bowl up in it, run a cycle through it. It's going to loosen up soap scum, food particles, grease, and it cleans the inside of the dishwasher. Like anything, it needs to be cleaned. You don't want a lot of buildup of all this stuff, right? Of all your, it's basically food particles. It's back to fats, oils, and greases, and just particles. And vinegar has a sterilization effect. It's acidic, obviously. It doesn't burn things away, but it will kill bacteria. It kills bacteria.
No.
And so you can do that, and then that just washes down the drain. And even in a septic system, a little bit of vinegar every once in a while isn't going to hurt.
It's not going to hurt.
So that's, again, one of the other things that I always say to check, too, is we're talking about seals, right? Have you ever had a dishwasher leak because the seals went bad?
I've seen it. I haven't.
Yeah, I never had either, but I've replaced them.
So you can tell by my answers to your questions is that I do the dishes by hand here.
Like I said, they put it in your side of the sink.
So it's no, I know what you're talking about, and I've seen this happen where it's leaking.
Yep, and it's dishwasher seals actually are believe it or not, are pretty hard to replace.
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, but if they start to leak, my first question if somebody calls me and says my dishwasher's leaking, and it's not a drain or it's not a valve or something like that, or as John and I did a job together. This is a little aside, but we go into the dish and there's a leak in the basement. We're like, what? Where's this coming from? Right.
Right.
We go downstairs. They had installed a new dishwasher. What, like 2 days before? Something.
Yeah,
like
it was a week before maybe.
So they're doing an inspection on the house, and the guy runs the dishwasher. And the next thing you know, there's a leak in the basement. We go in, and whoever installed the dishwasher cross-threaded the water supply line on the dishwasher,
which is easy to do because all of them these days are plastic. To brass usually a lot of it. So you can really screw that up easily.
So, long story short, we find that it's been cross-threaded and it's leaking and so forth and so on. But besides that, most of the leaks, like I've had several that I've gone that people want me to replace the dishwasher or replace the seal. This started from the seal, right? Mm-hmm. So one of my first questions is how old is the dishwasher? Because I know I personally charge about $120 to change a dishwasher seal plus the part, and getting the part is never simple. It's always usually an online gig because nobody's got parts for that.
By the time that happens, that thing is 10 years old.
It's 10 years old. So lots of times it's like, maybe it's time for a new dishwasher. It's not hard and fast.
It's a thought.
It's a thought. Yeah. Well, expecting your dishwasher gets used a lot in general. I mean, John, your hands are falling apart. Come on.
Yeah.
You look like a prune on your hands because you wash so many dishes. But anyway, I'm picking on you. One of our goals here at Handyman Pros Radio Show is to have a good time. So we tend to. We hope you find our jokes.
I am the dishwasher.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. So that's really the big tips on doing the dishwasher. And again, all of these articles are going to be posted on our website.
And let me just conclude by saying, make sure that when you add detergent to the dishwasher, it is the proper detergent.
You mean the laundry soap I use isn't correct?
You can't believe how many people have put those pods in the dishwasher. And those, they look like something that might be built for a dish, something like a dishwasher. But once that gets in there, it takes forever to get that taste out of those dishwashing cycles, because all of your cups, plates, everything is going to taste like laundry detergent.
Oh, that might explain why people like to eat them.
And it is awful.
Yeah. So there's another tip and trick,
yeah.
too. And if you have millennials, they might want to have it the hallucinogenic effect out of it. So, back in our day, Johnny, it was Drano Hot Shots, right? So they used to take Drano and make. Never mind. We'll go into. We won't talk about that. But anyway, all right. What else we got? This is the Turkey Trot.
This is, and like I said, I'm going to have a lot of people over, and just thinking back on all Thanksgivings that I've had, and the people hanging around and drinking my booze and watching my TV and football,
and
which is fine. And I've been over at a lot of people's homes. It's a good time. It's a great time of year to get together with friends and family. And I hope everybody out there really has an opportunity to enjoy this part of the beginning of the holiday season.
Perfect. I was going to say, have a happy Thanksgiving.
We'll see you later. All right, from our email bag at questions@handymanprosradioshow.com, we received an email from Eduardo, and it looks like we have another plumbing question. He installed a new shower head, and now he has less water pressure than before. What's going on? Is there any way to fix that?
That's a great question, So, John, do we want to go off on a political diatribe on this one or not? No. Okay, so we won't do that. But we are going to make a blanket statement because it's the truth. The government, in its eminent wisdom, has decided that it wants to control the water flow in your shower heads, toilets, and faucets.
Right.
Is that a correct statement?
That is true.
And that is non-politically charged. So, be that right, be that wrong, they do have restrictors in these various different items. So for Eduardo, I'm sure it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm sure he feels like, he's just barely getting wet, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the rude thing I was thinking, but I know in my case when I put mine on and I had to take it off because it was not enough water to even take the soap off my body.
Right.
So is there a fix? And the short answer is yes, there is. There isn't a shower head anyway. Now, toilet's another issue, but in that shower head, there's generally a really simple fix. John, what is that simple fix?
Well, there's a restrictor that they put inside there, and it's usually just a little O-ring that'll cut down, the opening that goes out to the shower head. So
yep, it's a little rubber O-ring. I don't know if it's rubber. It's probably not rubber, but it's a little O-ring. Generally, if you flip the shower head up to where you attach it to the nozzle, you can see it in there.
Right.
And if you I use a little screwdriver myself. You just flip that thing out, and it'll actually pop out. Right. Don't lose it in case you need to put it back in, John. Didn't you tell me you put yours back in?
Yeah, I did. I just got too much pressure, so.
Well, you didn't like the pressure washer in your shower?
It was just a little too much.
So, so keep it. And it's all about testing, right? But if you just pop that thing out, put your shower head back up, your pressure's going to go up pretty significantly. And in John's case, John put it back in because it was too much pressure. But
come to think of it, I might have done that before I fixed the PRV valve, which was on was on another show. So I might have had a lot of pressure.
You might have had a lot of pressure.
So well, we'll have to go back and look at that again. My pressure regulator valve. So
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
be it as it may.
Be that as it may. There is a way to fix it. It is flip that little O-ring out and screw that back on, and away you go. It should fix you up. And with that, I hope we've answered Eduardo's question.
All right. Good luck, Eduardo.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this podcast and have derived some value from it, here's 4 things you can do. 1, tell your friends about this podcast. 2, hit subscribe on your podcast player. While you're there, leave us a review. 3, subscribe to our newsletter by going to handymanprosradioshow.com and click on the subscribe button. We'll inform you of upcoming events, shows, and give you actionable tips for maintaining your home and property. And 4, send us an email with your questions to questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. That's handymanprosradioshow.com. That's our show for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.